A diskutovat budou
So discussing will be Karel Havlíček, the Deputy Speaker of the Chamber of Deputies of the Parliament of the Czech Republic, the former Minister of the Ministry of Trade and Transportation. He was also the head of the Association of Small Businesses and Entrepreneurs. I would like to invite him to the floor to participate in the discussion. Also, I would like to invite František Štrupl, the Director of Google for the Czech Republic. He focuses on the digital transformation of companies in Central and Eastern Europe. In the past, he was active in performance marketing. We also have Jan Kavalírek, the Deputy Member of Government, Ministry of Industry and Trade. And we would also like to invite Tomáš Čupr, who is an entrepreneur, a founder of companies like Slevomat, DámeJídlo.cz, innovator in e-commerce, logistics and retail. He uses artificial intelligence to efficiently expand to overseas or foreign markets. So we will be interested to learn more. So please, gentlemen, sit down, and I will start by what I mentioned in the beginning, that the Europe is not faring well in competition with the United States or China. We know that very well. So what do we need to what we need to do to improve the situation, Mr. Havlíček? Well, I already spoke, so I would like to leave room also to others. But what we need to do, we need to definitely decide whether this is just marketing, whether this is just words for us, whether we will be talking about the perspectives or future of AI and how important it is, or whether we actually start doing something. I will give you an example. I like a distinction by Mr. Michala, who is a wizard in the area of artificial intelligence, and he mentioned four areas or four countries, four groups of countries. First are the countries that are the drivers in developing AI, which is the United States, and from Europe, for instance, France. And then there is another group. These are companies that base a large part of their economies on AI. And the third group are countries that use AI but do not develop it. And the third group are countries that do not use it. So we are somewhere between group 2 and 3, and our ambition is to get to be in group 2 if possible. And in order to do that, we need to create the environment. We need to focus on development and research. The purpose is not to have this it is not just to assemble the final products, but we should always be those who create the algorithms, who help to create the added value, and the state can support research teams. And I have been saying that for some time. Unfortunately, nothing changed. In Czech Republic, there were 106 large research projects that focus on different areas, machine engineering, biotechnologies, etc. But none of them focuses on artificial intelligence. If we lose this competitive advantage, then it would be a mistake for us, and we should focus on that. I would like to know what is the perspective of a global company. What does Europe need to do to be competitive? Can you share your experience with us? Well, what is our experience from the Czech market is quite a broad question, but I would like to follow on what was mentioned. The question now is not whether we should jump on the train of technological progress or innovation. We simply have to do that in order to have a positive future for us, for our future generations. It is quite clear that the well-being, the affluence of the population is based on economic growth, and if we want to achieve economic growth in the future, then we will need to focus on developing technologies and also on innovations. I think that this was, if you if maybe you are aware of Mario Draghi's report that was released in autumn last year, and in that report Mario Draghi clearly declared that the European Union or Europe in general is lagging behind in economic growth. If I was to give you some figures, since 2019, the GDP of EU was growing at half the rate of the global average, and we are not comparing ourselves with the US or China now. We are comparing ourselves against the global figures. So these are alarming figures. The Draghi report identified 3 areas on which we need to focus. The first area was support for innovations and technological development, and thus also this should result in economic prosperity. The other area was decarbonization, and the third area was security, which is closely related to technologies. If we focus on the first area, which is the economic development and innovation, then I think we should focus on supporting companies, supporting startups in this area by, for instance, supporting education, by supporting collaboration with universities. And maybe I would take one step back to where it all begins, and this is a meaningful regulation. Regulation is a big topic when we discuss AI. We as a company believe that artificial intelligence is too important. It brings too big a change in order not to be regulated, but it is at the same time also extremely important for our future. So we may have to make sure that it is regulated well. Regulating well is extremely important. So if we want, if we speak about regulation, also if you look at the data from small and medium-sized companies that are still the driver of economic growth in our country, then one of the first things that prevents them from developing quicker, from growing, is the regulatory burden that is imposed on them. If they want to innovate, and they need to have free hands in order to be innovative quickly, instead they have to deal with many regulations, and it is extremely difficult for them. So we should start with that. What is important is also the mindset. We should look at AI and technologies as an opportunity for growth rather than a threat, and this is extremely important, this attitude, this mindset. We should start with that. We in the Czech Republic should say that this is the way we want to approach it, that this is the way we want to think about it. I will also be happy if Mr. Kavalírek will respond to that. Now we are discussing the AI Act is too strict, and Czech Republic is about to adopt this act into its national legislation. Sometimes we are even stricter than the EU legislation. So what can we do to make sure that this becomes an opportunity and not additional burden? We first of all have to make sure that we do not overregulate, that we do not implement even stricter regulations here in the Czech Republic than what is proposed by the European directives. I am a big fan of AI, and I had the opportunity to see how it contributes to increasing efficiency and prosperity of companies that introduce AI. So this is how I got to AI, and I think that we as a country we should make everything to make sure that we set up the conditions that that are favorable for developing AI in the Czech Republic. So we should not be only successful users, although it is important, but we should be also able to develop AI and implement it in companies and support companies in implementing it. So I fully agree with what Mr. Havlíček said at the beginning. We need to invest. I think in Paris, Macron also summed it up very well. We regulate too much and we invest too little. So this is something that we need to focus on all in the Europe because it is in the interest of all of us to make sure that we succeed in AI. It was already mentioned that now US invests 10 times more in AI than Europe. China invests 5 times more. So we need to invest more also in Europe. And as far as the regulation is concerned, I am at the ministry for 2 months now, and I came there with this idea that I wanted to focus on AI. Over these 2 months, we have been focusing mainly on how to successfully adapt the AI Act into the Czech national legislation, and this, what you mentioned, is extremely important for me. AI Act is already in force. It is in force since August 2024, and it will it was adopted in August 2024, and it will come into force in the near future. We are ready to participate in discussions about the implementation of the AI Act, but on the national level we have to make sure that we do not add additional national regulations. That means with the Minister of Industry and Trade, we want to be very active. We are ready to draft the legislation, the national legislation. We coordinate our efforts with the Ministry of Finance and with other ministries, and we will take only those articles from the AI Act that require to be actually implemented in national legislation, and we will include only those into the national legislations. These are articles or provisions relating to sanctions, also provisions relating to research and development. Here we want to make sure that we include as many exceptions for the use of AI in research and development as possible. And the third area is the establishment of supervisory authorities. We are currently having discussions about which authorities should be responsible for overseeing AI, because we need to choose authorities that will not only regulate but will also support and will create an environment where we support AI in the Czech Republic. We understand this is not easy. But I would like to know the opinion of someone who has successfully built a company in the Czech Republic and now is about to compete on the international markets. Well, I agree with what was mentioned, and I think that we are lacking just one thing that should be mentioned here. We stress research very much, but the key thing is to improve the productivity of companies on global markets. Unless European companies do not have an opportunity even to become successful users of AI, I think that we no longer have a chance to be in the first group that you mentioned. On Wednesday, I had participated in a discussion with CFO of OpenAI, and I see that we are really lagging behind, and there is no chance that we can jump on that train. It is already gone. But companies that will stay behind and do not become even successful users of AI will become more expensive on global markets. If they are more expensive, it means that they will not be successful and they will go bankrupt. And then in the next 10 years, we are about to see bankrupts of large companies unless they actually start implementing an AI or a larger scale. I am also from a company where we need to closely watch our expenditures. We need to use AI in order to reduce our expenditures in order to compete with our competitors. Research and development is something that is often far-fetched, but disruption of companies, lack of competitiveness, this is a real risk that we face. US companies will not be regulated. That means that they will be able to use AI. People in the US will be able to use AI also during their work. Their employers will encourage them in using AI. So this will be the situation in the United States. On the other hand, in Europe, the people will be in much more regulated situations. The employers will not be able to not only allow the employers to use AI, but they will not be able even to make them redundant if it is necessary. So I think that is extremely important that we focus on changing the environment, because the world is developing very fast. I was speaking to František recently, and I spoke with František how the things are changing extremely quickly in this area. Now, for instance, we are able to program using AI because new tools are available. Tomáš, imagine that you would fall asleep and next day you will wake up and the progress would be even bigger. Well, it actually happens. But this, I wanted to mention it just to stress the urgency of this situation. We are not talking about future in 3 years or in 2 years. The changes are here now, and in 6 months, the change will be even bigger. This cycle is going very fast, and 6 months ago I said about our call center. Well, at that time, the artificial intelligence was not good enough to actually sound like humans, and now it is not true. And now, if you call us, if you call our call center, you will be speaking to a computer, and you will not be able to tell the difference. And this is what happened just in 6 months. And we can expect the changes to accelerate even more. You are from Google. You are a big company. You are a big company, but you also meet with small companies. Small companies account for 60% of the Czech GDP. How can we make sure that even small companies use these new technologies? Often they do not use even ChatGPT.
That's an excellent question. I think that Tomáš actually led us to this question and answer. Not only us, we are sitting in this room, but all citizens and in the Czech Republic and in the EU must become skillful users. And if we talk about education, it's not only elementary schools and secondary schools. A fundamental precondition of success is lifelong learning. So we are talking about upskilling people. There will be a dedicated panel at today's conference on this topic. That's great because it's an important topic. I think this is a great place or a great opportunity for collaboration between the public and private sector. Google has trained 650,000 people over the last 10 years, not only in AI, but also in digital marketing, cybersecurity, which is very closely related to AI. And these are the people that eventually can find new jobs on the labor market and also can help to push the businesses further. Mr. Havlíček already mentioned that a number of companies actually consider moving their businesses and operations to the US from the EU. The latest example that I know about is CETIN, Czech company, who expressed being very sorry to do that, but the business conditions made them do it. And apart from the capital markets that are better available there, it's also the availability of the human resources that are much more skilled. And this is why we need to promote upskilling, reskilling through a national strategy. And second thing is that very often people simply do not express certain concerns because they don't know what to expect from AI. And the very simple start would be starting using the very simple AI tools such as Google Workspace or targeted promotion. For small and medium-sized businesses, good use of digital marketing would be fundamental. It would be really a cornerstone of their further progress and success on the market. Through that, they might improve their competitiveness and become, again, the driver of the economic growth. So you need to do something. You take certain active steps. Tomáš? education and training, skilling is extremely important, but it takes time. What I think is crucial for the success of small, medium-sized businesses in the upcoming months and years is educating them to be prepared for the API-first approach. So at least this fundamental infrastructure agentization of the system. If you have an ERP system, you have to make it possible for an agent to use the ERP system. Without that, you won't be able to make your labor force more productive. And of course, this will again negatively impact your productivity. In my company, Rohlík, which was established 10 years ago, it's not really an old company. Many of our systems are not agent ready. So since we will have to get ready to that, we spend a lot of money and time to transform the structure in that sense. And it's not easy. It's only starting, but when it really starts, it will be a jump progress. You know, 1,000 people will be able to do the work of 10,000 people. If you are ready for this agent type functioning on the market, you will be much better off. Today, you will have a programming company with let's say 20 programmers instead of 100, because coding is quite a simple system, because larger language models use the structured language. So it is important to reiterate that you need to make your systems agent-friendly. No small and medium-sized company will be able to do without it in 12 months. But, of course, SMEs, when you tell them this, are all scared because they don't know where to find an expert who would help them. All that you see, it's a puzzle of small things. If we look into the questions that we receive, it's regulation all the time. How can EU be more important in global economy if we are not able to finalize implementation of the harmonized legislation? How can you develop efficient AI if the regulation basically blocks it? So there are questions like this on the same topic, all repeated. Gentlemen, well, hello, you look at me. But I'm not the one who's on the government, but maybe one day I'll be there again. But I still try to realize what the politician should be able to influence and where their role should stop. I used to work in businesses, in large businesses. Of course, there was no artificial intelligence at that time, some 30 years ago. But we all know that at this moment, it's fundamental. I like the French model. Why do you think France is so successful in AI? One of the government members was a founder of the Mistral AI project, and they were not afraid to involve this person in the government. So he was pushing the topic in the government. So even if you are not AI-oriented, it's good to have people around you. I have my colleague Aneta, who is somewhere around, because she works in, used to work in Silicon Valley in the Czech startup, and she still commutes. And the good thing is that she always comes with new ideas and tells me what's happening there, and it's really reviving. So you need to make sure that your team have a good overview of what's happening around in other countries. It's the businesses who need to implement things, not the government. I remember when you started with your project, I was then the chairman of an association of businesses. Perhaps you had a good intuition. You were there at the right timing. It was during the pandemics. But of course, it was your enthusiasm and your decision-making that pushes the things forward. It's not the government. What the business needs is foreseeability in investments, foreseeability in taxes, foreseeability in the energy market, hopefully, and you need people. And this is where the government could take its role in education of the people so that we are able to generate a labor force that are willing to adopt the topics and to make sure that we have enough Tomáš Čuprs here. You mentioned foreseeability, but I'm afraid that we somehow foresee that the regulation will be so strong that we cannot go any further. Try and convince us about the opposite. Currently, we have a team at the Ministry of Industry and Trade that understands this, and we realize that regulation is an important topic. Yesterday, we had a meeting with all the important stakeholders founded by the ministry that we wanted to involve. Yep. We want to be very specific. We need to establish several bodies. That one of them is the supervisory bodies that will supervise the market. That it is all imposed by the AI Act. There are big requirements for hardware and software equipment. Ministry of Industry and Trade has already proposed one of its institutions, one of its organizations. We believe it's quite experienced and it should be well functioning. That would be not only regulating but also supporting the market. Then there is a notification body, which is a body that notifies the European institutions about the notified bodies. It is not a body that has to be established based on the legislation, but in my view, it is important to have such body. In medical devices, we created and established this body too late, and for that reason, some of the businesses had to apply for certification abroad. Basically, this approves the compliance of the AI system with the requirements so that it can go on the market. In Annex 1, there are 12 harmonized pieces of legislation that relate to various topics such as medical devices, toys, and etc. And whoever tries to place a product on the market and has AI implemented has to undergo a certification process for compliance. Now, reaction. Wouldn't it be better to establish, rather to cancel these bodies instead of establishing new ones? I don't care. People say, I don't care what the body's name is. I want to make business. Well, if it was just my decision, I would answer, yes, you're right. But we are not able to influence this. This is an infrastructure or the structure of the bodies that the AI Act requires strictly. What we can do is to ensure that there is no gold plating. I have been in very close communication with the businesses, with the Association of SMEs, with the Chamber of Commerce and others, and everyone is interested in a code of conduct, let's say, which applies to both users and providers. I'll just finish the sentence. This is currently being discussed by the Commission, and unfortunately, the Commission says, well, this might be even stricter than the AI Act as for transparency, as for equipment, open AI systems, territoriality. So here, our government, the state, should try and push to avoid this. We are at this moment at a stage where we are more or less okay with the legislation, but we don't want to make it even stricter. Thank you. When I see the number of those various bodies, basically I don't like it, but I understand we can't influence it too much. What we can do, though, is to influence the efficiency of the bodies, because often the implementation and actual performance of regulation is a bigger problem than the regulation itself, because a Czech public officer does not use AI, obviously, and I'm waiting for the approval of the public officer for too long, and this makes me incompetitive. If we need to have these bodies, please make sure that they function well and efficiently, not only in AI, but also in other areas such as R&D. When talking to the CFO of OpenAI, I was virtually shocked by the energy demand of their research and of their infrastructure. Thinking that something of this kind might appear in the Czech Republic is, well, it's unthinkable. It would need huge buildings and a lot of energy, and we are not able to promote the completion of a highway. Where there is a will, there is a way. So regulation or no regulation, I believe that if we have the right tools at hand and if we have the good terms of reference, we are able to progress. It sounds like there is not enough will. The will for more efficient functioning of the public administration is missing. So each body is just incrementing the complexity.
I will be very brief. I agree with that, and this is exactly the region where I think Ministry of Trade and Industry should play a role there. This is the ministry that is here to support industry, and we should be aware of that. We should focus on that very much. We and the minister have this idea that MPO, the Ministry of Trade and Industry, should be responsible for this infrastructure, and as far as the notified body comment is concerned, we really want to make sure that we have the good conditions for AI, and this is why we want to have this notified body in the Czech Republic. In case of medical devices, I saw a situation where if we do not have that body here in the Czech Republic, then it will be more difficult to get certifications from them. If this notified body exists, for instance, in Sweden or in other country, it will be more difficult to get from them certifications for systems using AI in the Czech Republic. So the regulation basically can be good if it is set up correctly. František, what do you think about that? Yes, I agree with that, and I would like to support what you said, that we should not be stricter than the EU. We should be cautious, and we should implement only regulations that are intended well. I believe that there are good intentions when the regulations are adopted at the EU level, and we should implement it in the Czech Republic, in the national legislation in such a way that it does not deteriorate or make the environment more difficult for companies. If you looked in the environment that exists in Europe and US, then there is a big difference, and regulation plays a big role in that. If you compare, for instance, search results, also you get different response depending in which country you perform your search. In Czech Republic, for instance, we do not provide more detailed descriptions regarding the results of search performed on a news service, and this is all the consequence of how we implemented the regulation that was adopted on the EU level. And I think that we should focus on making sure that we do not overregulate in the Czech Republic. I represent our company, and I do not want to pretend that everything is ideal, but I believe that for the future of the Czech Republic and for the future of our economy, it is important to have open minds, to look for opportunities for partnership, and this is the better way to go forward rather than to build barriers around ourselves and to protect ourselves even more. Yes, I agree that partnership is extremely important, and I would like to learn from all of you how you see the potential collaboration between companies, the state, and also the universities. Karel Havlíček mentioned several times figures, and he mentioned the difference between investments in EU, US, China, and Europe into artificial intelligence, and we have a question about that. Really breakthrough innovations, technologies were financed by countries, SpaceX, etc., internet, where we'll be able to shape the approach of the state to innovations. Well, it is not about not having sufficient funds available. I already mentioned that we should make sure that we continue generating money. That means we need to support companies and support, make sure that they have profits, that we can tax these profits, and then we can use this money to finance various kinds of infrastructure, including AI. Then it is about priorities that we use in each of the countries, or we may talk about larger units such as the European Union. We need to decide in when we want to invest these, where we want to invest the money. But unfortunately, at the moment, we are making less money because companies are leaving to the United States, for instance. That means the group of companies that generate big profit is becoming smaller. So this is the first step on which we need to focus. And the second thing is, even when profits are generated and taxed, then there is a lot of hands into which we that are asking for this money that we can distribute later. For instance, those who are operating green technologies, it costs a lot to support that. Then we need to invest also into defense, and then there is science and new technologies, and these are different areas, and we cannot finance everything at the same time, and we need to set up some priorities and provide reasons for why we have these priorities. And I would like to return to the United States, which are a big inspiration for me. Now we are talking about geopolitics, about the situation in Ukraine, and about customs in relation to the current development in the US, but we do not talk that much about how much money the current administration is ready to invest into startups or AI. They are very well aware that these are the areas that will help them to move forward even in defense. And in 2019, when I met with Donald Trump in the White House. Even at that time, we talked a lot about AI. This was a topic that was mentioned very often. And Trump focused on AI not because of business reasons, but because of security reasons. He said this is the absolute fundamental thing for us, because we need to invest into AI to support or to strengthen the security of the United States. Also, Narendra Modi in India sees AI as a tool to improve their security. So large countries see AI or more from the perspective of improving their security, strengthening their security, not only as something that will contribute to growing their economies. Of course, it will contribute to growing their economies, but then it will also allow them to use these resources also for defense. Tomáš, I agree with everything that has been said, and I see from the questions that are posed that there is a willingness to rely on the state. And I would like just to say that I think that in the Czech Republic, this is not the right thing to do. Yes, big breakthrough innovations in the past were financed by the state, by drastically larger states than the Czech Republic. The Czech Republic does not have enough money actually to do that. If we wanted to do something like that, we would have to do that on the European level. We would have to do it on the level of the continent. But what I see is, if there is a will, there is a way. If the research is done by Americans and the state would not like to contribute for that, then the Americans turn to the private sector. And if they think that they do not have access to data for their research, they would get that data from somewhere, because someone would be willing to give that data to them if they can participate in the outcomes of the research. And this entrepreneurial spirit, which we put down by over-regulation, is something that is a burden for us. It causes these questions that we are seeing. We are looking at the state and we are always asking, what can we get from the state? I never had this attitude, and I think that this is something that is correct. The state should not stand in our way. If it stood in my way, I would raise my voice against that, but I do not think that it happens that often. Jan Kavalírek. Thank you. I think that this is a very realistic perspective, and Mr. Havlíček also mentioned that we need to push on the state to create the conditions. This means also focusing on education, on the educational system. This involves programs that are intending for elementary schools, for retraining, requalifications. These are programs that focus also on supporting development of people in companies, and then we should focus on implementation of AI in companies. We already discussed that. We should implement AI tools to increase the efficiency of companies, and of course we should understand that there is some level of expenditures which we cannot afford in the Czech Republic. There are projects to develop chips, for instance, and I am a big fan of that, but if EU wants to be self-sufficient in the production of chips, computer chips, this is an important issue at the moment. If we want to be self-reliant as Europe, then it has to be a European project, because this requires such big investment that no single country in the EU can afford that, and we should now be aware that we are fully dependent on chips from the US. This is also an area that we are focusing on intensely at the moment. We want to change this situation. We want to move from Group 2 to Group 1. You know that this is a problem of many European states at the moment, but on the other hand, it is also an opportunity that opens eyes for us in the European Union. We must not import all these key components citizens, we need to be self-sufficient in some of these key areas. You answer some of the questions that we see in Slido. How can we keep key talents here? Well, I would like to respond to what Tomáš mentioned. I fully agree with it, and I admire Tomáš for what he has achieved, his entrepreneurial spirit, his courage in many situations was extremely important, and it helped him to bring to where he is at the moment. Also, I would like to say that it is good to realize that not all people have the same starting position, and that we have some groups of people which for some reason in this extremely fast changing world can be left behind, and we should be aware of that. We should keep that in mind. We should make sure that even these people find their role in this changing world. And this goes back to what Honza mentioned, to what Jan mentioned when he mentioned education. What do we need to make sure? What do we need to do to make sure that even these groups of people are able to keep pace with the changes, that they are able to flourish or succeed in the changing environment. So I wanted to mention just that not everyone is starting from the same starting position, and we should make sure to support some people. Not for everyone it is so easy to adapt to this AI environment. We have a question that is for Mr. Havlíček. Would you go the same way as Mr. Kavalírek and the Ministry of Trade and Industry? And this question came here when we discussed the implementation of AI Act into the Czech national legislation. So would you do something in a different way? Well, I think that we are all from, each one of us is from a different political party, but still I think that this is something that is not a political issue. This is something that all governments will need to address, so we should leave political rivalry aside. When I listened to what Mr. Kavalírek said, when he mentioned how many new bodies and how many new agendas will be established, it made me, it caught my attention. But I understand that if something new is established, something new is implemented, you need to take some approach. But at the same time, you should reduce in other areas. So we should not be afraid to implement something new if we believe that it will be beneficial for us. But at the same time, we should make sure that we cut on bureaucracy or public administration elsewhere. So in the Czech Republic, it has become a habit to implement new things, but keep all existing things that are here. And you will always get some reasons why people tell you that their body, their organization should be capped. So this is the problem as I see it in the Czech Republic. We should not overregulate. But in the moment, I think we will have a discussion about regulations in the next panel. So I will leave that aside for the moment. And also last year when I was here, I mentioned, we discussed show business. I am a big fan of rock music. And if you know Peter Gabriel, you will know that he is very innovative. And lately, AI has been mentioned quite a lot in connection with music and regulation. And this pop stars or music star are really worried about that, because AI can be used to mimic their pieces. And Peter Gabriel was their opinion on that, and he said that he sees it as a challenge, not as a threat. And he said that he doesn't like the regulation in this area, and he doesn't mind that there is a number of projects that may be perceived by some as a threat. He said, I see it as something that tells me that I should be even stronger, that I should develop and make myself succeed even in this more difficult environment. So this is an illustration of the approach that we should take. We should regulate only things where we need to be protected against crime, etc. But we should not try to interfere with the competitive environment. So this is the basic common sense that we should apply.
I fully agree. We have a certain level of regulation that is imposed by the AI Act to us, and I completely agree with what you said, that we should be taking the same path, all of us. We should closely collaborate across academia, public administration, businesses. I have always been very open. I have always tried to be in contact and communicate with all the stakeholders, because I need to have a feedback on what the regulation should look like. When we want to develop this piece of legislation, we are quite sure that this is not going to be approved by the current parliament. So we need to try and formulate the legislation in such a way that even the future parliament after the elections is approved. It would be nice to have this level of continuity. Let's now try and discuss the way the academia, the public administration and the private sector should collaborate so that we do not hinder one another's activities. Another question from the public concerns education and training, how we want to educate the young people and how we want to keep the young talents in the country. For example, without the employee shares. Eventually, employee shares will be actually approved. There is quite a good draft of the bill at the Ministry of Finance. The employee shares started to be promoted some 18 months ago, but it was not good enough. Unfortunately, it did not reflect the inputs from the businesses. So, in fact, we do have employee shares available, but they are not used because of the way they are regulated. So this is where I want to listen to the business. At the moment, we have a new draft. Again, probably it's not going to be approved, even though this would be the version acceptable and usable by the businesses. In any case, we are trying to discuss, this is our approach, that we try to discuss the detailed paragraph draft of the bills. Because the basic and fundamental debate is such that either we have the people here and can generate tax income, so either we will have the money from the taxes or not. If we want to tax the people at the very start from the employee shares, from the very start where the people still do not have anything, we won't get much money. If we want to tax them only upon exit, then of course the probability is much higher. The state is now looking into the things in the accounting way. But we need to have a holistic approach. We have the view of if we do a certain step back today, can we make more profit on it 5 years later? We need to make sure that young people stay in the country. I already mentioned my business experience many years ago. Now it's much easier to establish a branch or a business in a foreign country. And of course, if we do not offer good conditions, they will do that. I'm a member of the task force on employee shares. I have one comment on it. In the Czech Republic, we often try to reinvent the wheel. The debate was how to make 100% sure that no one is going to damage the money of the country. The debate should be how to keep the people in the country, how to keep the talents in the country. The debate was completely turned the other way around. What if this highly improbable situation occurs? Let's make another paragraph to make sure this does not happen. I eventually actually quit the task force because this was too much for me. Since we have the representatives of the current government, I can explain it to you. These are things that have already been thought out and invented elsewhere in the country. So why should we try and reinvent it? Well, the reason is because the public administration often wants to have it its way. Thank you. Sometimes I have the feeling that the legislation is done because of those who want to circumvent the laws, but they will do it anyway. How should we, what approach should we take that we avoid this in case of AI? I think that the crucial thing is the mindset. The mindset should be such that we want to exploit an opportunity that there is. And we need to say this loud so that it can be translated into the actions. We don't need to look over the Atlantic. We can have a look at the UK. This is what they said. The Prime Minister clearly said, we look at AI as an economic and social opportunity, and only in the second phase will we try and address the threats. This should go for the regulation. We should be aware that regulation already exists in many of the areas where AI is going to be implemented. There is an existing relatively good regulation in many of these areas, which might require only a minor amendment. So once again, as for the EU legislation, it should be implemented on the national level sensibly without any gold plating. Secondly, as a national priority, we should promote systemic upskilling and reskilling across the population because this is fundamental for the success. And thirdly, we need to enhance and strengthen the partnership between the public and private sector. On behalf of Google, we are extremely open to that. We highly appreciate if people from the ministries approach us and talk to us about how our technologies can be beneficial for the various ministries, whether it's defense or social affairs. I see the opportunities there, but we do not have any visits like this from the ministries. I would see this as very useful and beneficial. On behalf of the business, I see this as extremely important. For many years, we have talked about economic transformation. We do not want to be the blue-collar workshop of Europe. We are one of local companies that have expanded, that are technologically advanced. We are one of the most valued startups in the Czech Republic. However, over the last